Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and man, we have another show lined up for y'all today. We have a pleasure talking to a special guest, Chuck Cuda. Man, he has led over 200 million plus in real estate transactions through his commercial real estate firm. We're going to learn about that story because that's pretty awesome. Positioning himself as a top innovator in the field, but he also, as the CEO of Elevation Cannabis, he's took operations from 5 to 22 licenses across 3 states, proving his ability not just to adapt, pivot, but also to grow and disrupt industries. That's just a very, very, very short introduction compared to his very long length of success on his portfolio. I just want to cut to the chase because it might take me 20 minutes just to go through all your successes and say, hey, man, appreciate you clearing your calendar. Chuck, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate your time, man. So let's get right into it, man. Let's start with real estate. With your leadership experience in real estate, that's, I can imagine, a cutthroat industry. What experiences do you pull from that you believe help drive the strategy behind that success?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously persistence, coming from a position of value, always putting your client ahead of yourself is what led, when I went out on my own, that's what led to, expansive growth and just maintaining a core group of clients. And then obviously in the real estate industry, really any industry that you're in, the best source of marketing is the satisfied client, because they're going to refer you to 3 other clients. So, just coming from that position of value.
But you believe, let me rephrase that. What do you believe separates the top performing firms in the market today? Because I feel like it's probably changed a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's those who, I've been doing commercial real estate since 2004. And, I think we had a typo on that. We've done, since I started my firm, we had about over 400 million at my firm since 2016. So we've been a very aggressive firm. And I think what differentiates us, me and my team from, the past market is this is what we do. This is our vocation, right? So the real estate agents who really put a focus on their trade, as opposed to just doing it as a side gig or because it was easy money back in 2005, 2006, before the crash. Those are the ones that get to the next level.
Well, I appreciate you clearing that for us.
Today, especially, I think you really need to, what you focus on expands. So in down markets like we're in today with high interest rates, you really just have to focus and be proactive.
I appreciate you giving us that cleanup there. And when you think about just being able to delegate and to build a team of people, because no one is successful by themselves. There's always someone out there or a group of people out there that's helping us get to our peak, if you will. What's some of the things that you try to do with your team to make sure that we're all on the same page and heading forward?
Yeah. So, the cannabis space, for example, we have quarterly alignment meetings where all of our leaders, all of our executive levels, director level employees come together and make sure that we're all aligned. You put the goal in focus. So we always outline the goal. We're not trying to be, discreet. This is it's not a secret. We're trying to enable them, empower them, and let them strive for the same goal as we are. And that's right on down the line. That's what the real estate company, our hospice company, have clear and concise goals, let them know what those goals are, and then make sure that you meet with your team and get everybody in alignment, rowing in the same direction frequently.
When you think about the cannabis business today, what are some of the misconceptions you believe are still out there?
That it's a gateway drug, that there's really no benefit to it. I mean, when you look at the stigma that surrounded cannabis, and it's still this, Schedule 1 drug classification, which is the same as heroin and fentanyl. I mean, it's just not there, so the stigma behind it and the federal regulations behind it, it's just too stringent.
When you think about how industries move fast, I mean, with technology and AI and social media, good luck trying to get through your feed without getting tired, because there's so much noise out there, if you will. But understanding how fast-paced industries move, how do you stay ahead of regulation, competition, and consumer demand?
Yeah, you just constantly have to to be nimble, be willing to pivot, have the humility to accept when something isn't working, and just don't try and jam that square peg into the round hole. So, just being able to be nimble.
What leadership lessons can you share with our viewers and our audience that you learned from personally being successful in different projects and in terms of scaling and also staying competitive?
Yeah, I think you have to be willing to delegate, empower, give people the autonomy to make decisions and fail without micromanaging. So I think if you're going to be a successful leader and you're going to scale organizations or really any industry that you're in, you have to do it as a team. There's strength in collaboration, and no growth companies were ever built with one person. There's a lot of employees and directors and executives that helped them get to the point to where they are today. So being able to delegate and elevate.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Chuck Cuda. If you had an opportunity to share some wisdom with our viewers about how you identify when it's time to pivot, because we kind of said that a couple times in this episode, what do you believe is that process when people identify when it's time in the moment to begin to pivot?
Yeah, so anytime you make a crucial decision or one that's going to be imperative to the direction of the company, you always have multiple scenarios where you could go, to the east, to the north, to the west. So you have 3 different options, right? And you choose to go one of those ways for whatever reason. And I think evaluating that, after a 30-day period, a 60-day period, a 90-day period, and really try to evaluate what could have happened or what would have happened in the first process. So before you chose to go that direction, you evaluated these other options, and then reevaluate and reanalyze and say, you know what, maybe we need to shift directions here. This one obviously isn't working. We course corrected after 30 days and tried to implement a new strategy. Now after 60 days, we did it again. 90 days, you've got to be able to cut the rope and say, let's pivot, let's go a different direction. So I think having a strategy initially where there's multiple options will allow you to course correct and then redirect, more nimbly than otherwise, or you've got to come up with a whole nother plan.
When you reflect on exploring new markets, what's your process when you're taking calculated risks, and what some patterns, if you think you've seen any that you have noticed along the way?
Yeah, so I mean, from the cannabis market, we only explore limited license opportunities. So, some of the states, when they put in the regulations, they didn't cap the license count, from a retail perspective, or they didn't cap the cultivation flower canopy, which makes it susceptible to oversupply or, increased competition. So, we don't want to put ourselves in a position where anybody could just open up a store or anybody could grow, 1 million square feet of flower. So we always evaluate. The first thing we do is we look whether or not that's a limited license or a limited opportunity, because that'll allow those assets to keep their value as well, just from a supply and demand economics.
You also, if people don't understand, your schedule is pretty tight, man. You also give back. You find ways to give back. Can you share with us about your charitable foundation that you made in 2018? Name of it, and what was the mission behind it?
Yeah, so in 2015, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. His cancer went into remission, and then it came back more aggressively. And I was fortunate enough to be the bone marrow donor for my dad's bone marrow transplant. And dad's cancer-free today, post-transplant. His transplant was in 2017. And shortly after that, when I'm going down to MD Anderson and I'm seeing these kids hooked up to chemo bags, and, I look at my dad, he was in his early 60s at the time of the transplant. We were really fortunate that he was able to, receive the treatment that he did. But some of these kids they're not as fortunate to have, the longevity that dad had before his diagnosis. So we started OPES Charitable Foundation. The last 3 years, we actually committed $1.75 million to pediatric cancer research. We've raised about $750,000 of that already. We're going to have a gala next year in August to raise the balance. We're going to have about an 800-person gala to raise $1 million. And it's become a very important part of of my identity and my legacy and what I want to be remembered by is giving back. And we do a lot of work with, MS, FACE Foundation, which is autism, paralysis. Next Step KC, we just funded a $25,000 machine for spinal cord rehabilitation. So, we've got a lot of causes that are near and dear to us, and we try to help and support as many of them as we can, especially here locally.
That takes a lot of discipline, if I can say that, because anybody can say, I work hard for this, let me go have fun and enjoy life. But kind of touch on why it's so important for you with your leadership and with your opportunity of your platform to give back so much, because you ain't giving crumbs. We're talking about a nice bag that you're giving. I think that's awesome. Kind of touch why that's so important for your legacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not what you can't take anything with you. So really, your legacy is about what you can leave behind, and I look at that from a leadership perspective as well as a philanthropic side. So if I leave behind, if I build a company and I sell it, but I really didn't cultivate any more executives, any new leaders, then all I did was just scale a company for my own monetization. Where what we try to do now is we do training at the executive level. I've got Action Coach KC that helps out from the director level all the way down to the bud tender level at our stores. So we're trying to get everybody advanced. And then from the philanthropic side, I mean, that's really what it's about. It's about giving back. It's one thing to be able to put yourself in a position to succeed, but how awesome is it to give back to others who maybe don't have that same opportunity?
If you thought you weren't busy enough, you also coach. Is that right? Did I read that right? You coach youth baseball. Like, wow. Okay. So there has to be a story behind that. Did you play sports at all as well? Yeah. Or what brought you to do that?
I did. I played baseball through college. My sophomore year of college, I played at Maple Woods, and I threw my arm out my sophomore year. So I didn't make it past junior college. I didn't have the surgery, but it's always been something that's been a passion of mine. It taught me so many things, how to overcome adversity. I mean, baseball is a sport that's built on failure. So, how to have the right mindset, how to put in the work and the activities that you put in is going to produce the result that you get out of the game, et cetera. So it was just such a learning lesson for me to play youth sports. And some of the best relationships and friendships that I have came by way of youth sports. So when I had my first 3 kids were all boys, and they were on different teams, and I was juggling. I was going to one practice on Monday, then Tuesday, then Wednesday. It was every night. I told my wife, I said, we've got to figure out a way to simplify this. I'm going to have to coach all of these kids so I can control the schedule. And she's like, I really don't know if that's simplifying anything. But it's allowed me to bring in, the mindset into the youth sports side, have them align their goals with, and understand that the activity that you put into it is going to produce the result that you want, and get a little more granular with these young kids and make it fun and engaging. And it's simple. It really has simplified my life because I could practice all 3 of the teams on Tuesday and Thursday instead of running around every day of the week. I actually started another nonprofit called Naturals Baseball Club. We have 4 teams under our umbrella now.
You are definitely the definition of a person who goes after it. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times people would think about a great idea, but they never actually execute. But you execute not 1, not 2, not 3, multiple ideas, and have been able to be successful. And we all know that success comes with hardship and setbacks and problems. Let's not fool the audience. I know you have some storms in your life. What are some of the things that you been able to motivate yourself despite the storms, understanding that there is a bigger picture? Because, I mean, someone looking in, they might think, oh, someone handed you the keys to access all this greatness. But kind of educate the audience a little bit on what some of the setbacks have taught you in life.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that, my major setback, I was doing really well in real estate right out of college from 2004 to 2009. And, I was just a broker within a firm here locally. It was my uncle's company. I had great mentorship, great relationships, and I had a great start to my career, but I got served a subpoena to testify in a grand jury investigation in 2009 against some friends of mine, and I refused to testify in that investigation, and I ended up getting up to 18 months in federal CCA, Correction Corporations of America, in Leavenworth, which was a federal holding facility, for civil contempt of court. So, I ended up, going to jail I was in there for 5 months. But when I was in that scenario, I was pointing the finger at everybody else. I was pointing the finger, at the prosecutor, my buddies, the judge for sentencing me. And it wasn't until Thanksgiving that year when I was like, you know what? This isn't anybody's fault but my own. I'm the one that chose to bet on these games. It was my decision that led me here. So that's when I really took a look in the mirror and said, hey, I need to make these changes. I need to change the things that aren't serving me to my best and really shift my mindset and come out a better person. So, when I got out, I didn't even have a job. My uncle didn't even give me my job back. So that was another setback for me where it was like, okay, this is my family. Here I went away for protecting friends, and now my family's not giving me my job back. What do I do? And it was, I chose to work 4 jobs, so that I could get to the next level and just continue to grow. But at that point is when I said, I've got to take accountability. I've got to do the work that I need to do to become the best version of myself and change the things that I need to change.
It's a powerful story, man. I appreciate you sharing that and being transparent, because we all do it, man, as far as listen to shows, watch YouTube videos, trying to find the secret sauce, what's the fastest way to get rich. I mean, maybe not all of us do that, but come on, man, let's be real. We all scroll and see what's come out there as far as ideas. How do you balance growing and maintaining the type of success you have? Because for you being in a position to give millions, I mean, that's a great responsibility. What has been your North Star as far as keeping you grounded?
I mean, obviously the spiritual beliefs that I have, the belief in God, that there's someone always out there that's better than me. I mean, the humility that you have to have, and the lack of ego, and really just my spiritual values. I'm from a Catholic faith, and I go to church every week. I pray for guidance, direction, and that's really been my North Star is hey, I'm here. I've got the talents and abilities and the opportunity. I've got to do something with those.
If there's a CEO out there watching this, listen to the show, if you could say one message, dear CEO, fill in the blank, based on what you've been through with your own personal experience being an entrepreneur and being successful. Anybody can claim the title entrepreneur, but it's a difference of how you look at things. But what would you say to that person who feels like there's so much more? I just feel like I'm hitting this brick wall. What words of encouragement would you say based on what you had to push yourself through and break those walls in order to find the success you found?
Yeah, I think you just always have to have a breakdown before you have a breakthrough. As long as you have the unshakable mindset to believe that there's growth beyond the limitation that you're at currently, then you're going to succeed.
Last thing I'll say, once again, listen, Refocused Radio, watching this online, talking to our guest today, Chuck Cuda. Last thing I want you to do for us is young people out there. Man, it's hard keeping up with the next generation. I joke with this with a friend of mine. I say, I think every generation takes turns, right? We all think we have the best music in our era. We all feel like we have the best whatever in our era. And now I'm in my mid-30s. It's like, can't keep up with the young crowd no more. But what would you say to the young people out there as far as why it's important to start now, whether it's go for your business, whether it's want to be your best version of yourself? What would you say to young people that they start early so that way they don't get old and be like, man, I wish I would have did this and that?
It's easier to recover from a failure when you've got a lot of life left to live. So take a risk, bet on yourself, and do it at an early age, because if you fail, then you've got plenty of time to bounce back and recover. If you wait until you're later in life and then you're like, oh man, I should have done this. One, you may not do it, but two, if it doesn't work out, then maybe you spent your retirement trying to chase that dream.
Yeah.
So fail early, fail fast.
I love that. When you look at opportunities to not just help impact the world around you, if you could change anything in the world, I know that's a crazy statement, but if you could, what would you want to change and why?
Whew.
I know that's heavy.
Well, I would get rid of social media. I feel like it's the devil's radio. I think that too many people have been affected from the mental health side of it, and it's the online bullying and then the instant gratification. There's no deep-rooted relationships anymore. I mean, nobody's got 12,000 friends, but I think they put stock in that, and then they really value what those people say, and they take it to heart. And I just think if I could change anything, it would be I'd nix social media and go back to the old-fashioned, deep-rooted relationships where they mean something.
I really like that because I think you're right on the death scroll. I mean, it's so easy to allow your time to just melt away. And I remember back in the day, I'm not that old, but I remember back in the day, we played basketball, whatever, until the street lights came on. Now it's like we're just going YouTube tutorials how to dribble, and it's like, man, we didn't have that growing up. I mean, YouTube did come out until I was in college, so it's like these young people, man, they had to. I gotta be careful. I don't get no I don't get no crazy emails, but not saying they don't have it as bad as anybody else, because we all have our struggle. But I just feel like social media can be a huge distraction, and we definitely see highlights of people's success. We do not literally see the hard blood, sweat, and tears that a lot of people that we look up to are able to appreciate and just enjoy. So I think you hit a good point in that, because anything can become someone's distraction, whether it's social media, if it's playing video games. I'm not trying to be a negative person, but I feel like strategizing is definitely something that people can do at a younger age. It just really has a massive potential for your growth. So last thing I asked you, when you look at personal development, you mentioned about being nimble. You mentioned about how you pivot and all that. What would you say to someone, this is something that you take this with you for the rest of your life, especially when it comes to personal growth? What would you say has helped you along the way, especially when you had moments where you maybe wanted to give up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that affirmations and believing in yourself is really the most important thing, especially as you're working through hard times. Just knowing, cultivating that mindset and that belief that you're heading in the right direction, and that you're gaining traction, and that you believe in yourself and you believe what you're doing. Because if you have that mindset, then it's limitless as to what you could do. So, I mean, just affirmations, believing in yourself is the number one thing.
Well, like always, been listening to I Am Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our good guy, Chuck, man. Once again, before we close, how can people stay in touch with you? What's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so email is probably the best thing for me. I've got a website, www.chuckcuda.com, and then cuda@elevatecannabis.com is my email, and I could get you that information. We could post it.
Awesome. Well, once again, I want to say to you, Chuck, thank you for your time, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right, man.